Hi everybody, it's Maya Zahira here with Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and we're now live in our Psychic Protection Sanctuary Facebook group. For those of you who are watching this replay somewhere else, not in the Facebook group, want to let you know that we have a free Facebook group and it is called Psychic Protection Sanctuary. So if you're watching now, you're probably watching the replay because the people who are joining live are just getting their notifications. So shout out to you guys on YouTube and elsewhere, sending you lots of love. And just a reminder that this is a Facebook Live, so it's more casual than like a slick, shiny video class. And it's really intended to be that way. So we're going to jump right in. Our topic for today is ancestry and psychic protection. So we're going to be talking about the kinds of psychic protection issues that specifically can run through family lines and how that works. So now I want to give a shout out to those of you who are joining live, and as usual, if you can let us know where you're joining from, go ahead and say hi, give us a thumbs up or a heart, and you're totally encouraged to participate and chat and give emojis and all of that fun stuff, because that's what we're here for. So today's topic is super interesting, and I was inspired to cover this topic actually because this is what we've been diving deep into in our paid program, Spiritual Empowerment Academy. And it occurred to me that, we had jumped right into the deeper stuff, but we didn't really have any content that was just explaining, just like breaking down what are the different types, like basic 101, like before we get into lesson 1 in the paid program, like basic 101, what is this ancestral psychic attack? Like, what even is that, and what's it all about? How does it work? So that's what we're going to be doing today, and you all are getting free access to it because this is in our free group, and then it's also going to serve as extra supplemental for the people in my program. And my poor camera is having trouble focusing, so give me a second. Keeping it real sometimes. There, that's better. I don't know what happened. All right. Facebook. It's so silly. So Joe is joining us from Mazatlan, Mexico. Lourdes from Lawrence, Kansas. Oh, and you guys, most of you know, I'm in Tucson, Arizona. And so it is over 100 degrees here. And, we're just going to have the air conditioning and the fan blowing. And that's just how we're going to do it, so we don't die of heat over here. So you're going to hear, air conditioning sounds. Christy from Cartersville, Georgia. Hello. I'm sure it's hot there too. It's very humid in Georgia. I was researching where I wanted to move to a couple years ago, and I was looking at Georgia and Florida and everything, and I ended up here, but now I'm really glad because I'm realizing the dry heat is a lot better than the humidity, at least for me personally. Okay, so I also wanted to, Christy, it is very humid. I also wanted to just point out, in case you guys didn't know this, so I was just thinking about how I've been doing these free video lessons for 5 years now, very regularly. So what that means is our playlist on YouTube is super long. Like, that's fantastic. There are so many free video classes on YouTube, and I'm not talking like little 2-minute snippets like some people have, little mini lessons. Like, these are 60 or 90 minute classes, sometimes longer, where I'm teaching you tons of stuff, and there's got to be over 100 classes. I don't know. There's a lot. There's a lot in there. So if you haven't discovered that yet, you need to go in there. A lot of people, I just love hearing from you guys. A lot of people do reach out to me and say, oh my gosh, I've been binge watching, binge listening to all of your free stuff. And that makes me so happy, you guys, because that's why I create it, because I want you guys to be able to utilize it. So we've got Zahira from Seattle, Washington. Awesome. Okay. As usual, I also have a lot of notes here because we're going to go over a lot. Okay, so I think I'm just going to jump into our topic for today. I think we're ready. Okay, so our topic is all about ancestry and psychic protection, and how spiritual issues of any kind can end up impacting not just you, but your whole family line. So one of the things that happens is that sometimes individual clearings don't work. Okay? Sometimes when a person is like going to a healer, a shaman, or whatever, and they're having their energy cleared or having psychic protection work done, and it's not working. It's not working. Why is it not working? It's not working. I've had people come to me for private sessions, and they'll tell me, like, they've spent $15,000 on like all these different healers, like trying to remove an entity or a really bad energy cord or some kind of pattern of oppression or something like that. Again, they've been to like a million different people, and I'm not kidding. I've had so many people, and some people have told me like they've spent enough money to buy like a new car, like on getting all these clearings done, and it hasn't worked. And the reason why is because they were clearing the person's immediate energy, but not working on the root cause. There are a handful of different root causes. One root contributor can be that there's a major spiritual issue in your ancestral line. Another root cause that could be addressed might be major psychic protection issues going on with your past lives. That is a whole other topic, and we'll leave that to another video some other time in a few months probably. Okay? But there's a lot of different root causes that are beyond just you as an individual. And if those are not addressed, you could have a million shamanic clearings, healing sessions, and it's not going to do anything. It's going to make you feel better maybe for like a couple of days, but the issues are going to just keep coming back. So that is why it's important that we talk about this issue. And I will tell you, I do get frustrated when I hear about what some of you all have had to go through with the root issues not being addressed, and all the money wasted, and then but not only that, but like the months or years of having to deal with horrible issues. So that's why I feel really passionate about really getting into some of these root causes. We've got Rochelle from Wisconsin. Hi, Rochelle. Good to see you. Okay, let's check in on my notes here. All right, so I was talking about why sometimes individual clearings do not work, although they can give you some temporary relief. Now I'm going to just take a moment to define. I'm going to give some preliminary definitions of psychic attack in general, and then psychic attack that's affecting a family line, a lineage. Okay? So I'm going to just give a quick definition of this. I have several videos that I go really in depth about the symptoms of psychic attack and what it's all about, right? But the basic definition for an individual psychic attack is that that person is experiencing, the person who's experiencing psychic attack is having an issue where a person or energy or entity is sending that person some negative energy. Okay, so the person is receiving negative energy from some source, from a person, from an entity, from a negative energy. It can be from like some global energies. It can be from the collective dark forces. There's a variety of sources that could be sending this negative energy to the person. We could call it a curse. We could call it black magic. We could call it we could just call it negative energy. We could call it bad luck. We could call it any number of things, but it ends up being received as a psychic attack, and then it causes the person who's receiving the psychic attack to have anything along the spectrum, like just feeling tired, brain fog, not feeling well, all the way to major health issues. Psychic attack can cause money issues, can cause relationships to fall apart, relationship issues, issues with your job, just bad luck in general, bad fortune. Some psychic attacks can also cause paranormal sorts of symptoms like lights flashing, seeing an entity or entities, being physically or spiritually attacked by the entity or by the energy that the person is sending, the perpetrator is sending. So anyway, I could go on and on. There's whole videos in my playlist on YouTube all about what psychic attack is. That's what it is as an individual. So most likely, if you are reaching out and trying to get information on psychic protection, it might be because you've had some kind of a psychic attack, psychic protection issue in the past or currently, and you're wanting to figure out how to clear it. But we also need to define what it means if there are psychic protection issues in your lineage. So this goes beyond just you as an individual having this negative energy sent your way. It's actually coming through your family line. It was most likely initiated at some point in the past, and I'm going to give various different types, and I'll break it all down for you in just a little bit. But it's come from some point in the past for any number of different reasons, which I'll explain. And then it ends up being received into your energy in a way that impacts you just like a psychic attack. I mean, there could be bad luck. There could be difficulty in relationships with everyone in your family, or money problems with everyone in your family, or various family members have had issues with unwanted paranormal activity, spiritual warfare kinds of issues, that sort of thing, where it's not just you that it's happening to, but various people in your ancestry. By the way, it's not always every single person. Sometimes it's just one person per generation. Sometimes it's almost everybody, but it'll skip one person in the family but get everyone else. It's just really different from circumstance to circumstance. And by the way, the information that I'm sharing with you today, as usual, is not coming from a book that I read or a workshop that I took from someone else or anything like that. You guys have probably come to know over the years that the information that I teach is coming from direct knowledge. So it's coming from direct spiritual downloads, spiritual information that I receive, as well as tons and tons of firsthand, hands-on work with my clients. So these are patterns that I've seen with all of the different clients that I've worked with who have happened to have ancestral issues. Now, does every client that I work with or every student that I work with have issues in their ancestry? No, sometimes it's just an issue with that one person, okay? But it is prevalent enough that I do always look for it, because if we don't look for it, then we're not going to get to the root cause. By the way, when we're talking about lineage and ancestry today, I'll be using those two words interchangeably. And also, I'm referring to all aspects of your lineage, including your biological family. So the family that you share your DNA with. So your bio family. If you have a step family, so if one of your parents if they got divorced and they remarried, and then your stepdad helped raise you or something like that, that even though it's not a biological relation, that does have an effect on you. So that is something to be aware of. In my observation, like the genetic connection seems to be a lot more powerful. That's for obvious reasons. But I want you to understand that these other forms of family also have an impact. So when we're talking about lineage, you can think about not only your bio family, your step family. If you're adopted or you have any adopted people in your family, then that can be included as well. I tend to kind of compartmentalize, like when I'm looking, because I was adopted, when I am exploring lineage issues of my own, and when I'm working with clients as well, I will compartmentalize and I will look at, okay, what's going on in the biological line and what's going on in the adopted line, or with a client, maybe their step family, and I'll look at it one energy at a time as separate things. I find that to be useful. So when we're looking at psychic protection issues in the lineage, we're looking at issues that could affect the genetics and the energy, the spiritual energy of the descendants in the family. Okay? All right, so we've already given the difference between individual versus ancestral spiritual issues. Okay, I'm going to go over one more thing real quick, and then we have a couple more shout outs here. All right, so just speaking generally, before I go into 5 different types of psychic protection issues in the family line, in ancestry, 5 different types of ancestral psychic protection issues. I'm just going to go over something basic here. And it's just to clarify, as we're talking about ancestral issues, ancestral psychic protection issues can impact the lineage in different ways, in different aspects. So the DNA can be impacted, like literally the whole ancestral line's DNA can be impacted physically and spiritually, because everything's energy. So there can be something attached via the DNA or a distortion in the DNA. So aside from the DNA and the physical structure, there can be issues with the energy, the energetics, the spiritual energy, the energy field of each person in the family line. Or there can actually be an entity or entities passed down through the generations, or that follows the descendants down through the generations. So there's different ways that these issues can show up. All right. As usual, I do suggest that you have a pen and paper, because I think you're going to want to jot some of these things down. Okay, so We've got Tony. Hi, Tony. Marla is joining from Lenexa, Kansas. Nick is saying hi. Hi, Nick, from Lawrence, Kansas, I think, right? And Yvonne, good to see you guys. Okay, let's jump in after I get a quick drink here. So I mentioned we have a list of 5 different ways that the ancestry can be impacted. This is not an exhaustive list. This is the list of the first 5 things that really popped into my mind as I thought about all of the patterns that I've seen with all of my clients over the years and how ancestral issues have shown up in different ways with different people. Oh yeah, I'm so glad you made that comment, Yvonne. Holy cow, because we are going to talk about trauma. I got chills right now. Yvonne says, research is showing the impact of trauma. Research is showing the impact of trauma is passed down through DNA. And that is true. I mean, the research is saying that it's true. And from my perspective as a spiritual healer, I also believe that it's true based on what I see clairvoyantly. And not only is that a physical distortion that's happening in the DNA, but I also believe that there's something going on with the energetics of the DNA and the morphogenic field, the energy field of each descendant after they have after the trauma has happened higher up in the lineage, then creates a distortion in the energy fields of everybody who comes after. So it is showing up in the DNA. I also believe it's showing up in the energy field as well in a very similar way. So that leads us to first on our list of the 5 types is it really deals with patterns. Okay, let me move this a little bit. Okay, so we're going to start off with kind of basic things, and then later on in the list we're going to get into the more paranormal kinds of problems. So number 1 type, we have issues with negative soul contracts, patterns, or what I call energy grooves or distortions, just like what we just talked about. So trauma passed down the family line can create a distortion, just like what we were just saying. But there's more to this list. So any kind of trauma, but I broke it down and added some other examples. So any kind of trauma, but also poverty. So that can literally create like these energy grooves in the, not just the individual's energy field, but just their whole life experience. The pathways are more open to poverty happening for them, and financial ease is very blocked for them. So that's what I mean by energy grooves. Like pathways are open in this way and they're closed in that more beneficial direction. So poverty, energy pattern of poverty, suffering, energy pattern of suffering, grief, greed. So we have some qualities in here that are ones in which the people in the lineage are basically victims of this energy, right? Like a victim of poverty. But then we have negative qualities that end up being interwoven into the family line that we would see as negative qualities, but they work in much the same way, where the ancestral line is really like darkened and the vibration lowered and the people are struggling more. So we have grief, we have greed. That's the one I was going to say, greed. Evil acts. So if there are a lot of evil action, so if there is someone in your ancestral line who committed horrible, horrific, evil actions and was just a dark, horrible person, that can have an effect. It can create distorted energy patterns, energies of addiction, and we're talking about any kind of addiction. And sometimes the energy of addiction is passed down where it's alcoholism, or it's more of a broad addiction energy, and it's showing up as different addictions throughout, scattered throughout the family line. So alcoholism, drug addiction, sex addiction. I even included pedophilia in here, because I consider that an addiction and a distortion for sure. Addiction to food, gambling, really video games. I mean, like, you can be addicted to anything. And so we've included in that list things that are more mundane all the way to seriously harmful addictions. The energetic pattern of slavery. And slavery can show up in different forms. Powerlessness, the energy of powerlessness, homelessness. I've had people who've talked to me about working on clearing out the energies of homelessness through their ancestral line, so they won't have to be impacted by it anymore. Energies of loneliness, illness, etc. So that's just a partial list. There's just an infinite number of negative patterns, energetic patterns, or soul contracts or agreements. And it's important to understand that some of these soul contracts, or some of these patterns, may have been intentionally chosen. And that seems to be the typical standard belief in New Age, is that everything is chosen. But I'm going to say that sometimes these negative patterns are chosen, but sometimes they are not. And I do see this a lot, that sometimes a negative energy or a negative circumstance has been imposed upon a family line without their consent. Like someone has cursed the family line. They didn't agree to that. The person did it. The perpetrator chose to do it. The common belief that nothing can be done to you against your will is a really false and harmful spiritual belief. By the way, I should do a whole video just about that. But I want you to keep in mind that if you've had a pattern of suffering in your ancestral line, you may have chosen it. You may have chosen to come into a lifetime where adverse experiences would really deepen you through hardship, but it's just as likely that you didn't choose that adversity, that suffering, and that it was imposed upon you. And that is something that I help people to discern. My students in Spiritual Empowerment Academy have access to me. They can schedule one-on-one sessions, and that's something that I'm able to easily see. And if you are someone who's really developed your intuitive skills, you might be able to tune in to yourself in your own situation and feel into whether any negative soul patterns in your ancestry were chosen or imposed upon you and your family line. Okay. Yeah, great question. Christy is asking, so if you agreed to it, would you still clear it? I love this question. And by the way, this is one reason why I love having the live format that's more casual, because a lot of times you guys ask questions that I didn't have in my notes. I didn't even think about talking about that, and yet this is really important and we need to talk about it. So you guys always ask the questions that we need to address, so thank you for that. So if you agreed to that contract, to that negative pattern, would you still clear it? So let me address this a couple of ways. Can you clear it? If it was something that you agreed to, that you chose, can you clear it if you decide that you want to now? And I would say, yes, absolutely, you can clear it. There's like 95% of the time you can clear it. Occasionally when I'm working with someone, I'll find that on a personality level, they do say that they want to clear it, but really the Akashic Records guardian comes in and says, no, you really chose this. You have to stay on this course and learn whatever came here to do. But most of the time you can clear it, that you can make a declaration that, okay, I thought that this was what I wanted before, and now I'm changing my goals for this lifetime. I feel done with that lesson. Thank you very much. Time to move on. Okay, so if you agreed to it, would you still clear it? So what I just talked about was, could you clear it if you wanted to? Now, the way that you worded it is, would you still clear it? So you might choose not, you might decide that you don't want to. Maybe you're like, well, I really can feel that this is the path that I've chosen, and I can feel that I'm not really supposed to shift that, or that that's not really the approach that I'm supposed to take, so I'm not going to clear it. So it's really on a case-by-case basis. But the general question, could you, or is it something that can be done? Can you clear a pattern even if you chose it? Even if it's a deeply grooved soul contract that you chose and signed and whatever. Yes, you can definitely shift course. You can decide that a soul lesson is complete, and you can release it and move on to the next thing. And that is a thing that you can do. Hey Stephanie, good to see you. Okay, so now we're going through the 5 different types of psychic protection issues that can occur in Ancestry. So we're starting off with more basic ones, and then moving along the list into more paranormal aspects as we go along. All right, get your pen ready. Number 2. Okay, negative karma in the family line. And we're not talking about your negative karma. And remember, we're not talking about past lives. So a lot of times people think of negative karma, they're thinking of bad things they did in their own past lives. This video, we're not focusing on past lives. I want you to think about just you as an individual, even though that's not reality, but just for learning purposes. Think of you as an individual. Don't even focus on past lives right now. And then think about your ancestry, your family tree going upward, right? If you had a big diagram. And if there was someone in your past family line who was a very bad person, that can create negative karma all the way down your family line. And it is not your fault, it's that other person's fault. But here's what I mean by a bad relative. They may have abused people or other beings in some way, shape, or form. So they were a terrible person in a physical sort of way, harmful to people or nature or other living beings. Or they abused power, spiritual power. So let's say they were a magician or they practiced magic, and instead of using it for good, they chose to engage in the dark arts. Perhaps they were involved in Satanism. okay, which is a very specific aspect of the dark arts. Any of these really dark, evil actions, and like if this is someone who committed genocide or murdered a lot of people or tortured, really even one person, right? But like the more terrible actions, the worse the karma. Okay, so more creates more negative karma. So bad physical actions and negative spiritual actions. So abusing power, abusing their spiritual knowledge. Let's say they were a dark practitioner, a dark shaman, or practicing dark witchcraft, any of those kinds of things, okay? So that creates this negative ripple. Let me see. Okay, I was just checking something. I'm going to mention something in a little bit. Okay. All right, so number 3 on the list. Yeah, now we're getting into the real creepy stuff. Number 3 on the list is that somewhere in your ancestry there was a Satanist, or so now we're getting out of like negative. We're not really talking about negative karma. We're kind of compartmentalizing. We're not talking about bad, terrible actions. Okay, we're talking about participation in dark arts, Satanism, or cult member. If they were a cult member, a Satanist, or they were practicing dark magic of any kind, then aside from the negative karma, we're just looking at the fact that if you have a Satanist in your family lineage, that is bringing a whole spew of dark black energy. And that's aside from any horrific events, horrific actions that they may have taken against other beings. Okay, so compartmentalizing it a little bit. And that laughter is a rueful laugh. It is not a funny laugh because it's pretty awful. It is just this cloud of black that comes down through the family line, and again can affect some family members more than others. Some of you may have experienced someone of this nature in your current family, who, like, it's a person who's still alive, or it could be someone who's further back in your ancestry, and sometimes you don't even know, like it's like someone seven generations back. You have no knowledge of them, but we find out about it through doing some psychic detective work, and that's something that I'm able to see. Or that if you've developed those gifts, then you could lay out your family tree and see where the problems are coming from. So we have Satanism. My body doesn't even want to say the word Satanism. Various cults. And one of the issues that can occur is that the family member who is a Satanist or a cult member will sometimes promise certain relatives to the dark forces. So they will promise all of their children or all of their descendants or a certain child. And that is in exchange for power. And in addition to this issue in the family lineage, there can also be directly for the person who's doing this seeking. So for you, there could also have been ritual abuse. So this is called SRA, satanic ritual abuse, There are other forms of ritual abuse through other cults as well. And then, so what that does is causes immediate trauma in this lifetime. So just layers of intense trauma through the ritual abuse, plus the issues of the lineage coming through. So it's like, it's a lot. It's way more than if you think that you're just under a normal psychic attack, and there's this kind of stuff going on that's actually 10 times worse than just your standard psychic attack. Now, it can be cleared, but I think sometimes people, when they don't realize how, like, well, there's healers out there that they're very well meaning, they're capable of doing a clearing, but this is like 10 times beyond what they have ever been trained for, and they just can't, they just don't know what to do. And that's fine. You find someone who does know what to do with it. So this Satanism cult member issue in the family line ends up causing layers and layers of trauma imprinting in the immediate family line, and also just flowing through, all the way through. Before we go on to number 4, we're going to read Joe's statement. She says, "Thank you for this one." Yeah, I think I was just starting to talk about number 2, the abuse of power, people in the family line, really negative people in the family line. Rochelle says, "If you remove these things from yourself, will that remove it from your children below you in the tree, or do we need to remove it from them as well?" That's another really great question. Okay, so yes and no. Whatever healing you do on yourself, whatever it is, if it's healing from a physical illness, if it's healing from a mental illness, if it's healing an emotional pattern, a behavioral pattern that's not great, healing your relationship with money, like all the mundane stuff, and healing the really deep, intense stuff like this. Anything that you heal in this lifetime, it ripples out and helps your entire family line. And it ripples out both ways. So it's going to affect the generations to come in a positive way. And since in the spiritual realm, the existence in the spiritual realm is not a linear, straight line, we can have an effect on even past generations when we work on addressing and healing our issues, the major psychic protection issues and the mundane issues, all of it. So absolutely, I highly encourage you to do whatever you can, whatever you feel guided to do. Anytime you do self-healing, or work with a professional healer. I mean, I think it's good to do kind of a combination. Like, you need a team and to be doing things for yourself, both. And the more you do engage in that, the more beneficial it is for your family line. And that is, even with your descendants, even if they've already been born, they're already like 15 years old or whatever. Whatever shifts you make in yourself, it still shifts down the family line. It affects, even if your children are grown and they have grandchildren, whatever you heal within yourself, it still has an effect on the energetic level. Now, some issues may have already taken hold in some of them. And so once things have already really solidified with the person, whether it's a life issue, a pattern, a physical illness, or whatever, you healing yourself of it doesn't just magically make it leave the other person usually. It's a lot easier to clear things out of the energy field than once it has manifested physically. It takes a lot more. But any healing that you can do on yourself, absolutely, absolutely. And if they haven't been born yet, then you're working with a clean slate, and these problem areas haven't been formed yet, so you can clear it on yourself before they even come into physical incarnation. Obviously, you know, a lot of you already have kids that are born, so you just work on healing yourself, and then just like be grateful that you are sending out those ripples. Now, I've been talking so far in regard to Rochelle's question about self-healing. That's one level of the clearing work. So of working on clearing yourself. But then there's also another level, another vantage point, which is clearing your ancestral line. And that's more complicated. And I say it's complicated for like somebody who's new to doing healing work. It's more complicated than working directly on yourself, but it is something that you can learn to do, and it is something that I do with my clients. So for example, if we're in a session and we want to clear out a particular issue, then during our session time, we will be working together and clearing it out of you directly, and then we'll pull back and look at the whole ancestry, and we'll connect with the Akashic records, and we will be looking at things. I've got to stutter tonight. We will be looking at things in a more holistic way and clearing energy cords, clearing energies, clearing patterns, clearing black magic, clearing all sorts of things from different levels of the ancestral line. So it's a little more complex, but definitely can be done. And these are the kinds of things that we're doing in our paid program, Spiritual Empowerment Academy. Before I go on to the next one, I realized I didn't mention my website at the beginning, so I'm going to mention that right now. It's www.psychicprotectionsanctuary.com, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com, and that's where you'll find out about the online academy, Spiritual Empowerment Academy, under the events tab. That's where it's at. That's where you can find out about it. My intention is less is more in regard to members in the program. So in other words, I don't invite just everybody to join it. My intention is that whoever really resonates and is like, oh my God, I totally need this, those are the people that we have in the program. And everybody else, you can hang out and enjoy the free content for as long as you like. I love having you here. But if you feel drawn, head on over there. Okay. Joe says, well, it was 2, but gee, then you got to 3. Yeah, Joe. I knew that you were perking up and listening when I was talking about number 3 on the list. Okay, on to number 4 of our list of 5. Oh, Zahira, you know, when I grabbed my cup this morning, I was like, oh, I'm doing my video. I better grab my cute cup so you guys can see it while I drink. Okay, number 4 on the list is that there is an entity of some kind that is following down the generations, following down the lineage. So entity is my broad term, but it could be a demon It can be a jinn, which is another kind of entity. There's a video on that. It's spelled D-J-I-N-N. Not too far back in the playlist on YouTube, if you want to know what that is. They are even nastier than demons, and both demons and jinn are the two common negative entities that I have observed that have had the pattern of following people down, following down an ancestral line. Because both of those kinds of entities, demons and jinn, tend to be very psychopathic in nature, and they get focused on revenge. They're really angry about something, and they just hook their claws in, and they don't want to let go so much to where they will follow all the way down the ancestry. In some cases, it's not the ancestral line, it's more the person's past lives, which again is a whole other topic. So, but we're talking ancestry today. Demons and jinn will tend to follow down an ancestral line. I mentioned often it's from anger and revenge and hatred, but with jinn, this is a weird thing about jinn, is that sometimes it's that in their weird psychopathic sort of way, they have fallen in love in a psychopathic sort of way. They have fallen in love with somebody in the family line, and then they don't want to let go of that ancestral line. They just keep hooking into the next woman or man that comes next in the family line. All right, so I mentioned this before, but in terms of the entity issues, sometimes, so I have some subtopics to number 4. Sometimes they're due to what I talked about in number 3, where there was a Satanist or a cult member in the ancestral lineage. That ancestor chose to promise certain family members to a particular demon, or to the dark forces in general. But one of the reasons why there might be an entity, specifically a demon, following down all of the family line can be because there was a Satanist or a cult member in the past family line that promised that that demon could have all of those innocent ancestors, because usually the ancestors are very innocent. It's usually the one that was the really, really bad relative. Okay. Okay. We talked about revenge. Okay, so still talking about entity issues here through the family line. We talked about how the entity issues can be caused because there was a Satanist or a cult member who promised that demon could have the descendants. But also, just in general, it can be an issue where the entity is wanting to take revenge, as I mentioned earlier, or has some other reason why they're obsessed with that person and then the descendants of that person. But also, speaking of entity issues, the entity issues could be caused by a curse that has happened further up the family line. So there's a person, just like an average person or a dark practitioner, who has gotten really angry with one of your ancestors and placed a curse on that ancestor. And when they placed the curse, they called in usually a demon, sometimes a jinn, to attach to the family line. So the reason why there would be an entity is because an angry person cursed the family line, and one of the things that they did in that curse was that they called in one or more nasty entities to continue to attack the family line, and that's part of the curse. And then the last subcategory of the entity list is that one reason why there might be one or more entities infiltrated into the family line is because that family line may be targeted in general by the dark forces. So we've talked about specific things like there's a Satanist in the family line, there's the family ancestry has been cursed by somebody, by some jealous person over here, cursed this family line. But when I say targeted by the dark forces, that's more general, and that is usually that there is something going on with the DNA of that lineage that makes that lineage really vulnerable. So we get into the fact that certain bloodlines are heavily targeted for entity attack, for demonic warfare, for jinn attack, for an onslaught of whatever. And that this is because there's really something very special about that bloodline. And because there is something really special about that bloodline, the dark forces in general really blast that family line. Okay, so the family line tends to be pretty innocent. They're not causing this at all, but because they are part of this important bloodline, and that's probably a whole other video, of different important bloodlines on the planet right now that are targeted by spiritual dark forces and other dark forces. That's kind of a side tangent, but that is one reason why there can be lots of entity activity in a family line. Okay. All right. So as you can see, like even just talking about like what happens and why is pretty complicated. We have just one more, number 5. But even before we get into learning how to clear any of this stuff, like just figuring out what is happening and identifying it, there's so many different aspects to this. Okay, so number 5 is a little bit more basic because number 4 was complicated because we were getting into all these different layers of why different entity issues might be happening in a family line. But number 5 is just a curse on the family. So when I was talking about why there might be entity issues, that can be one aspect of a curse on the family. And of course, as you're probably noticing, I hope this is not too confusing, but as you're probably noticing, these categories really blend together because number 5, a curse on your family line, that can cause what was in the list for number 4, entity issues. That can also cause what we talked about in list number 1, like where the whole family line, after the curse happens, there are tons of negative energy patterns of suffering and poverty and loss and illness and so on and so on. Okay, that actually the cause of it wasn't just life circumstances and trauma, but was actually the root cause of all of those negative issues, and the trauma was actually the original seed was the curse that was placed upon the family, and then after that just everything went to crap in the family line, and there was trauma after trauma. So there was not only the curse, but then you have all this trauma imprinting that's affecting the DNA. So, so number 5 is that there was a curse placed on the family line by a person. So when I'm talking about a curse, I mean one of two things. There was just your average person, a neighbor or a competitor, like someone who, let's say a past relative was a merchant, there was another merchant who was competing and was super jealous, or there was just a really shitty neighbor that lived next door that was just really awful and just decided to curse your ancestor, or a jilted lover, or there's all these different reasons why an average person, and I'm not saying they have good reason to initiate a curse, but there's a lot of reasons why people would choose to do that sort of negative action. And so that's one aspect, is that a regular person might activate a curse on the family line. And number 2 is that a black magician, a dark magician, a man or a woman who is practicing any sort of magic and using the dark arts. And notice that I'm always specifying, because magic is magic. Like, there, you can use it for healing, you can use it for neutral things, but specifically people who, a person who was upset with your ancestor and they did some kind of a curse or black magic spell, etc., to cause harm to either that person or the family line. In my opinion, it doesn't even matter. If they sent black magic to that person, then it has a trickle-down effect. All that shit just comes down to all the ancestors. But sometimes the focus will be on cursing the entire family line. And the dark magician will tend to do that sort of thing if they're really super mad, like beyond mad. Then they will just curse the entire family line. So the average person that we talked about here, they might activate some kind of a curse by simply sending really intense emotions or thoughts, like they're just so steaming mad and jealous, etc., that their thoughts, their feelings literally send out a blast of energy that impacts the other person like it's a psychic attack, because it is. Because emotions and thoughts are energy. However, that regular person, they may have had some working knowledge, any working knowledge of the dark arts, and they could have done some kind of spell work also as a part of that curse. So we have the regular everyday person, and then we have someone who's like a master dark magician that's coming after your family line. That one really sucks bad. But either way, we're talking about a curse on the family line that can then cause entity issues. It can cause any of those negative imprinting, patterns of suffering, and on and on. And so it's important to clear all of that. Yep. Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention one other thing. With the curse, we talked about the average person, and we talked about the very adept dark magician. Either one might activate a curse on the family line, but sometimes the average person here might go and hire the professional to do the curse upon your family line. So let's say like 6 generations back, there's someone who was really angry neighbor because you had more goats than they did or whatever. And so they're so pissed they hire the particular local witch who does practice negative witchcraft as well. And so she or he agrees to do a curse against this person. Okay. So the average person might hire someone. So we've got a really good question here. Rochelle asks, do you have to handle with different types of cures like voodoo? I think I have the gist of your question. So there are different kinds of magic, and for the purpose of simplicity, when we're going through some of these videos, I tend to use general terms like dark magic or dark shaman, dark magician, etc. No, I think I got it, Rochelle. I think. So I tend to use more generic terms, but the reality is that there are so many different flavors of dark arts currently and in our history. So, for example, and Rochelle's question was about voodoo, if there was a voodoo curse placed upon the family line, then we would be addressing it by looking at, and this is my opinion professionally, we would be addressing it by looking at solutions that are voodoo in nature. So using that same tradition, but the healing aspect, there are a lot of healing aspects to voodoo. There are healing tools, healing rituals, as well as those that harm. So it's a good idea to address issues within the tradition, in my opinion. Now, some of you, for example, might be practitioners of magic, and someone of a different style. Let's say you practice Wicca, but there's like some mega voodoo curse on your family line. I know you might feel really attached to using your tradition, Wicca, and there's power to that. If you have a strong resonance to a particular practice, it will have a lot of power for you. But I would also invite you to explore some solutions that might also be connected with whatever that curse was connected with. So voodoo in this example. So you might maybe do a blending of things. With our example, if you're Wicca, do your normal Wiccan ritual and then draw in some healing tools that are used in voodoo, for example, right? So if that's way over your head and you don't know any of that, that's okay. That's getting a little complex. Today, our goal was to help you understand the complexity of the kinds of issues that can run through family lineages. And a lot of times we don't even think to look for it. We just are so busy clearing ourselves, which is important. We do need to focus on clearing in the here and now, but sometimes we don't even realize all these different things can actually be running through our family line. And I really feel like a lot of people who've come to me over the years who, for example, are having an entity issue, they're so fraught with the current issue, which is totally understandable, that they haven't really thought about the fact that their grandmother and great-grandmother or whatever seem to have, or different people in their family line seem to have maybe not the exact same issue, but parallel issues, and that we need to look at that, right? So now is a good time for questions. I have a little bit more that I'm going to cover, and I know it takes about 1 or 2 minutes for your comments to get through to me. So now is a good time if you have anything or comment, question, etc. So So we've gone through our list of 5, and I'm just going to cover a few odds and ends here. Typically, in the work that I do with clients, I will see I'll see these kinds of issues between 3 to 7 generations back. But I've worked with clients where there were issues going back really, really far. Like there was one client that I worked with where there was an issue like literally at the origins of their ancestry. What I saw that they were these really far back ancestors were cavemen people, and they had encountered this really malevolent energy, and that had caused problems all the way down the family line. Now, again, most of what I will see that's directly impacting people is more immediate, like more recent generations back will have a more immediate effect on that person. If it's an issue that's happened like so many generations back, it usually becomes more diluted further down the line. Okay. But again, only occasionally have I seen issues that were affecting a person that were like so many generations back, their ancestors were cavemen. That's really rare because, again, usually it diffuses through the generations. Now, I've mentioned past lives a couple times in this video, and for the purposes of simplicity, I've just focused on ancestry so that we're not going all over the place. But I want you to understand that you have to address your ancestry, but you will also want to look at your past lives, and we will do a class on that. I don't think right away in the future, but we will circle around and cover that at some point. But I just wanted to make a note here to let you know, to make it really clear that you need to not only work on your current stuff, but also your ancestral issues. But also you will need to look at any past life psychic protection issues that could be contributing. And so just an FYI to be aware of that. So it can be a combination of ancestral issues and past life issues. And that reminds me, I had a client just recently, I think last month, where there was an issue in her ancestry. I think it was like her mother or her grandmother. There was an issue with some energy, some non-beneficial energy. But the reason was because in that grandmother's past lives were a total shitstorm mess. And so she brought that into the ancestral line. And so everybody after that was just like, blah, dealing with that. And so it can get really complicated, but luckily it's not complicated for me. I'm really grateful for that because I'm both right brain and left brain, and I'm able to clairvoyantly see all of these things, and then in an analytical way it all makes sense to me. So then I explain it to you what's going on. But just know it can get pretty complicated where you're dealing with ancestral stuff and past life stuff and ancestors that have past life stuff going on. But when you're just learning this stuff, just focus on one thing at a time, and just like for now, take some time to learn about ancestry and your own ancestral line and ancestral clearing. Hey, Marla, I see that you were here. Stephanie says, I am glad I have a one-on-one session coming up with you. I'm curious if there are any of these issues still in my ancestry or past lives. Yep, we're definitely going to dive into that for sure. And you guys, students who are in my Spiritual Empowerment Academy are the ones that have one-on-one access with me, and the general public does not anymore. So FYI, if you are wanting to work with me, that is the way that you do it, because I am really involved with the students in my program. Like, that's my number one focus. Okay, one more thing on my notes. Just a recap of what I mentioned at the beginning, which is that sometimes when you're doing individual clearings on yourself, whether you're doing your own self-healing or you're working with a healer, and they're clearing your chakras, they're clearing your aura, they're doing Reiki on you, they're doing all these different things, and these issues continue to persist. It could be because you have ancestral issues that need to be cleared or past life issues. And that is why it is important to focus on learning about your ancestry, clearing your ancestry. And remember, we're talking about not just your biological ancestry, but it could also be your adopted family, your step family, etc. And I'm going to say this because I'm remembering the students in my Spiritual Empowerment Academy. We have a big mix in there. We've been working on ancestry in there. And we have people who've had, really pretty lovely family lines, just a few issues. And then we have some members who've had just like the worst of the worst. And I won't go into personal stories, but just, really, really, really challenging ancestors. And no matter where you are on the spectrum, it's important to work through this stuff so that you can thrive. Okay? Zahira is saying, your knowledge and experience are amazing. Wow. I want to cry right now. That just brings a smile to my face. Aw, thank you. I'm going to say something, and I hope that it doesn't sound too weird. There's a lot of things that I don't know. Like, I am not a brilliant person. Like, I can't explain science. It's hard to do math. There's I have a curious mind about many things, but I don't think that I'm above average intelligence compared to anybody else at all. So just giving some context here. For some reason, though, when I went through the very traumatic events in 2016, when I went through a very severe psychic attack, and all the details are in my book. I'm not going to explain it right here, but Darkness Disguised as Light, you can get it on Amazon. That experience was very traumatic, and it also activated tons of spiritual downloads. So there's so much. Even as I was taking notes for this class, I was like, wow, I know a lot about this. And it's a combination of direct spiritual downloads and firsthand experience, and being in the trenches with my clients, where I'm combining what my downloads have been, helping them to figure out what's going on with them, and it's all really fascinating and really important work that we're doing together. Okay, so yeah, a lot of information here. And you guys, I am really wanting to write more books. I just have to have the time. I got to figure it out. I got to figure out how to do it. Because there's so much that I want to write. So you can binge read more downloads about this topic. I'm not brilliant when it comes to, whatever other topic. When it comes to this, yeah, I want to write 5 more books, actually 7 more books, maybe 15, I don't know. Okay, I think we are done. The last thing to say is that the next step is going to be up to you. You can take what you've learned here and really follow your inner guidance and your inner wisdom, and do some work to clear your ancestry because you already have some tools and some knowledge at your disposal, or you might feel drawn to just like take this information and then go on and watch the other free videos on the YouTube channel, Psychic Protection Sanctuary. Or you might feel like you really, really need some solid guidance and support from myself and from the group energy of Spiritual Empowerment Academy. And if you feel drawn to that, then your next step would be to go to my website, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. Under the events tab, you'll see Spiritual Empowerment Academy. Take a look at that. If you feel drawn to, submit the application, and then we'll see if it's a good fit. Question from Rochelle. Is it appropriate to go back and heal a specific family member from this life or others and clear them of these negative energies, or is this overstepping? Another great question, Rochelle. Okay, so I'll just answer generally here since we're kind of wrapping up. If the family member is still alive, then the answer is very clear cut. You cannot initiate, you can't do a healing or clearing on any person without their consent. And that is non-negotiable, right? I know there are people who think other things like just connect with their higher self and ask them. No, that's a bullshit answer. That's just trying to get people to ignore consent rules. So, if they want your assistance and you have asked for consent, then you can do all sorts of clearing work on them. Now, if they've said no, that's your answer. You have to respect that. But you can still kind of work on the ancestry kind of in general, like visualizing it as a big tree or as a bubble or whatever visual is helpful to you, and just send it healing energy, even though you might not be able to clear that person specifically. Now, if they've already passed on to the other side, that is not as clear cut. So obviously we can't ask their permission because they're no longer alive. And so because of that, I do tend to tune into that ancestor, and I'll connect with that ancestor specifically, and or their guardian angels, or both, and ask if we have permission to do any healing work on that individual. And for me, I will get a clear-cut yes or no. And then if I get a no, then I respect that, and I work on whatever other aspects that I can in the family line that I do have permission to work on. So hopefully that gives a preliminary answer to your very important question. And Zahira says, thank you so much, Maya. Love your classes, and I love you too, and I love all of you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each one of you. Thank you to those of you who asked questions. Every single one of those questions was really important, and I feel like everybody needed those answers, those questions. So thank you for participating. Tony says, thank you. Rochelle, you're welcome. Tony says, thank you. Helpful and interesting as usual. Lots of food for thought. Yes. You're welcome, Christy. Oh, all the comments are coming through all of a sudden. Joe, thanks as always, Maya. Okay, thanks everybody for being here. Just a reminder that we have this free Facebook Live in our free Facebook group every first Monday of the month. Every first Monday, so you can actually put it in your Google Calendar and watch out for it, and it is at 6 Central. So adjust for whatever your time zone is. It is at 6 Central every first Monday. So for me here in Pacific, that's 4 o'clock Pacific, if you're in Tucson like me. You're welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining Lourdes. All right, so if you're not already a member of the Facebook group, if you're watching the replay, you got to get over and join the Facebook group. But you're going to notice that you have to answer the 3 questions, because I'm really picky about who's allowed to join our sacred space. Even though this is a free group, we keep the energy really good in here, and so we don't allow any like fake Facebook profile people and lurkers and that sort of thing. So if you're coming here from YouTube and you want to join the Facebook group, you gotta answer the 3 membership questions, just so you know. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening, and I will see you online, and I'll see you in the next free class. Bye.